Hey everybody, welcome to The Coin, episode 1. This is going to be a podcast featuring myself, Xmetric TV, and my good friend LJ, Lawrencejame Hearthstone.
What's up, guys?
And today we're going to be talking about our impressions of Naxxramas as a whole, whether this is going to be a viable option in the future for Hearthstone. Also a little bit about the specific cards, whether certain cards are living up to their hype, if they've fallen off, maybe if there's been any underliers. And then the last thing we're going to be talking about today is the well-played tournament that happened recently and some of the drama that is unfolding from that tournament, along with especially Reynad and RDU and their perceptions in the Hearthstone community. So I think the first thing we'll talk about is Naxxramas, kind of as a whole. So what did you think, LJ? Do you think this is something that Blizzard could do in the future, or what do you think?
I really liked Naxxramas, especially in the beginning. The first 2 weeks were the best for me, for sure. It was really exciting, but it did kind of dread on. The 4 weeks was a little too long for me. I would have liked the cards released a little sooner, just because it didn't affect the meta right away. We're not really seeing the effect on the meta until right now, when all the cards are released. But it was a little slow in the beginning. I understand why they did it. It was their first release. I think in the future they should definitely do it a little faster. As far as the actual gameplay from it, I was quite impressed that they were able to make an AI so competitive and so challenging, because the games were actually required a lot of thinking, a lot of deck changing. And as long as you didn't look up a deck on how to beat this, it actually required you to deck build, which is something that is rare in Hearthstone. A lot of people just net deck things, and that's perfectly fine. But this was kind of the one thing where it really required a lot of thoughts in your deck building, and it was really fun. I think the best thing out of the entire Naxxramas, for me personally, was the Hunter class challenge, where you got all web spinners. That was insanely fun and completely random. And I think it took me a few times to beat it, actually. I think I kept getting stuck with Silverback Patriarchs. So, yeah, that was no good.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I think I agree definitely with the fact that it was a little slow. Especially the fact of the class challenges and everything only being 3 AIs to beat. So you waited 7 days for 3 AIs that at the base level you could beat in a couple hours and you could get the cards. And then you were just basically left playing the exact same thing. So it was more of just a little bit of change, but it was pretty much the same game for most of it. I mean, the class challenges really offered quite a bit different, but I think it would be better if I was going to say it would be better if they made you complete the class challenges to get some of the legendary cards, but at that same point, if you really just have a hard time with it, and even if you net deck something, you still have to play it to a certain level. You can't just net deck and then automatically win. And so for some people, they might be upset if they couldn't win. But maybe if they just made them longer, maybe if they only did 2 or 3, if maybe they broke Naxxramas up into 2 halves, and they did 5 challenges each, and then they did it a little bit more sporadic rather than oh, well, we're going to release Naxxramas over this month. Then in 6 months we're going to release this. If they did it maybe over these 2 weeks we're going to do it. Then in 3 weeks we're going to release 2 more over the next 2 weeks, and they split it up maybe a little bit differently. It might add a little something different, but I really agree with you that the AI was amazing, and the difference in games was like night and day. Some games it was 30 health versus 30 health, 2 mana hero power versus 2 mana hero power. Other ones were 75 health with a 1 mana hero power, and some of them they didn't even really need the cards. It was just they could do 5 damage to you with their hero power, and then you had to rush them down. So I really think the AI, they did a great job with that, and it was nice to see, because I think the first person, computer versus human game mode was really something absent. Other than your introduction, and I think that was what really was nice. Your first introduction into Hearthstone, when you have to play all the different people, and each one's different. King Mukla played different than Millhouse, and Millhouse played different than, the Innkeeper himself, and that played different than Illidan. I think that was what Naxxramas most reminded me of.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome. I think it was really cool. The only other thing I think that Blizzard could look into for future card releases and expansions would just be like introducing a new pack. So rather than you buying just that standard pack for 150 gold, you could buy, whatever, the Naxxramas pack. Rather than doing all this, they could have just released the Naxxramas pack for maybe 250 gold.
Yeah.
And or stuff like that. And then that way you still have the option to buy packs, because I know that that's something that's always fun in traditional TCGs. And even collectible card games. It's waiting for the expansion, buying the packs, hoping to pull it. But since there's no trading aspect, you can't sell a card. There's nothing like that. I think that's why Blizzard's decided to stay away from it.
Maybe, yeah, that makes sense.
Because that's what the whole fun of opening the packs is getting that card, and if you don't need it, being able to trade it for 4 other cards.
Yeah.
But besides that, overall, Naxxramas I think was really positive and it was healthy.
Yeah.
For Hearthstone. So
definitely.
Going after Naxxramas as a whole, going more into it. What about the cards? What do you think? Did a lot of cards live up to their hype? I know you did an awesome pre-Naxxramas ranking system. How do you think you did, and how do you think the cards lived up?
Well, I didn't do as awesome as I would have liked. I'll say that much. But, there was a lot of cards that I thought were going to be good and ended up not being good. A lot of cards I did think were going to be good, that were good. And some of those cards are Mad Scientist. I thought that card was going to be great, and it is. You're seeing it played in Maze Secret decks. You're seeing it played in Hunter decks, and it's just overall a card that has completely reinvented construction play. It's very solid if you can get it out early. It's so good for tempo, and that card is definitely one of the best cards that got released for sure. Maybe even a little better than I thought it was going to be. Haunted Creeper, another card that I thought was going to be great, and it is. You're seeing it played in tempo. You're seeing it played in aggro. It's just a very good minion that stays on the field, and it's hard to remove. So that's why it's good. It's the Harvest Golem 2.0. Sludge Belcher is another card I thought was going to be great. A lot of people did not think this card was going to be good. They said it was the same stats as the Tazdingo, which is true, but the Death Rattle that brings out a 1/2 Taunter guy, the Goldshire Footman that it brings out is really strong, and it kills a lot of combo decks. It's really killed Combo Druid that ran the double Force Nature, double Savage Roar. Unfortunately, it killed that. I love that deck, so that's why I say unfortunately, but it's definitely killed that deck, and it's hurt Miracle Rogue for sure. So Sludge Belcher is a really good card. And it's also hurt against Handlock, too, actually. It's pretty good against Handlock, just because the Leroy Power Overwhelming can get delayed with Sludge Belcher. Cards that I thought were surprisingly good, that I thought were going to be bad. I think Kel'Thuzad is the one that stands out the most to me. We saw this played in the Well-Played tournament recently, and it performed highly well. A lot of games, it was the deciding factor, actually. I thought this was going to be a card that could only be played in control Death Rattle decks, but it's kind of the card that's kept Druid decks relevant, is because you can get a lot of guys out there, your Druid or your Claws, your Yetis, a lot of sticky targets, and then at the end game, you can throw Kel'Thuzad in out there, and all your guys are coming back if you trade them in. So that was really a surprising factor for me. Kel'Thuzad I did not think was going to be a good card, but turns out it may actually see a lot of play. Unstable Ghoul was the other one that I didn't think was going to be amazing. I thought it was going to be okay. But Unstable Ghoul is used in every single control warrior deck. It's kind of replaced Wild Pyromancer. I know a lot of control warrior decks did not run Wild Pyromancer, but a lot of them wanted to. And Unstable Ghoul just fits perfectly in there. So I really like Unstable Ghoul. That was the card that is a little surprisingly good. A card that was surprisingly bad, there wasn't many of them. The cards that I thought were going to be bad, turned out they were pretty bad. Things like Narubar, Weblord, or Stone Skin Gargoyle, those cards are pretty bad. They've not performed well, they've not been played, and they just have not been very impressive. Zombie Chow is the one card that I thought was going to be really good, and it turns out the card is actually pretty bad. Unfortunately. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Zombie Chow, I thought it was going to be played in Zoo. Zoo doesn't even really like it that much because the restoring 5 health, it depends when you get the Zombie Chow in your hand. If you get it in the mid game, then it's not very good. And it's not played in control because, honestly, the 2/3 stat is really what holds the card back. I thought it was going to be the second best card, the second best one-drop to Flame Imp, but it just shows you how Flame Imp having a stat line of 3 attack, 2 defense is so much better than 2 attack, 3 defense, just because the 3 attack can trade up with a lot more minions. It just gives it a lot more versatility. Whereas the Zombie Chow, yeah, it's a little more durable, but it hurts your late game by a lot. So that was unfortunate.
Yeah, and then I pretty much agree with you on all those cards. The only other one I'd like touch on is Lotheb, and I think Lotheb was it's a healthy card for the game. I'm not a proponent of Blizzard creating cards just to nuke other decks or changing the game just to get rid of a powerful deck. I think that's up to the players. We need to come together, not come together, but get creative. Figure out if something like Miracle Rogue is dominating the meta, or like Hunter was dominating the meta, like Zoo. We have to come up with a good countermeasure to it, and I feel just Lotheb helps us with that. Having them play like a Gadgetson, whether they have the conceal or not. If they play Gadgetson into an empty board, because most likely you're not going to play it if obviously we could just clear it, you need to have a reaction that turn. And I know a lot of decks don't have too much single target removal. So Lotheb's like an awesome card. You can play it, silence, pretty much silence the rogue for 1 turn. Keep them from doing too much damage. And even if they kill off your Lotheb, fine. They definitely could have killed it off or killed off whatever you had earlier. But I just think overall it's pretty good. Even like I know we've talked about Miracle Rogues playing it themselves because it's that good of a card. It helps them in the mirror match. It also has a great, it has a great place in any deck against Mage, against Druid. Everything. Every deck plays spells, so it has its use. And especially, it's a pretty beefy minion itself. It's not like it's just some like 1/1, where it's like, oh well, they can definitely clear it other ways. So I think it definitely is living up to its hype. And then the one card for me, and I think a lot of people were excited about that just hasn't played out, is the Nerubian Egg.
Certainly.
I mean, with the stat line that it would, it couldn't do much on its own, but silence, it's so easy for it to be silenced or just ignored. It really is not a big deal. I used to see Nerubian Egg when it first was coming out, and I was like, oh my goodness, and I started planning ahead. What do I have to kill a 4/4? Half the games now it comes out, I'm just like, okay, I'll hit you in the face. I'm not going to touch your egg. I'm not going to kill it. I'm not going to end up having to waste a swipe because I do play a lot of ramp Druid. I'm not going to trade into it just because I have a swipe already. I'm just going to play over it. I'm going to hope that whatever combo cards you have that are going to work well with it, you don't draw. And if you draw them, I've got silences. So even if you buff it up, I'll just silence it, and then you've wasted your buff, and I've gotten even more use out of a silence. So I definitely think it has a place. It definitely has a place. It's not useless, but it's just overall, I'd say mediocre. Until somebody comes up with some really creative way, I don't know what that would be, unless maybe another card will come out in the future that maybe could give it not even divine shield, but could make it like untargetable or something. Maybe that would be the solution. But those were really my 2 cards that I was thinking about. And then the last thing we were going to talk about was the recent Well Played tournament. More specifically than the tournament was the aftermath, some of the drama now that's going on with Reynad, and also the perception that other people like RDU are under now throughout the community. And for those of you that don't know maybe what we're talking about with more specifically the Reynad drama, a couple days ago, depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching it on YouTube, a couple days ago though, Reynad released a video kind of highlighting his recent play at tournaments, coming up with a little bit of insight into what he's doing with his spare time, or not even his spare time, with his general time, and kind of saying why maybe he's not performing as well as people expect him to, and things like that. And pretty much it comes down, for me, in my opinion, that he's known to be pretty salty. I mean, he's probably one of the saltiest people, and again, not that he's not, but he's just known for it. Whether it's on his stream and he loses a match to some RNG luck-based move, and he'll be talking about it for 4 games after, and he's just sits back in his chair, and but rightfully so. A lot of us do that. However, if he's going to be one of the top streamers, he's going to get called out for it. You know, if LJ or I stream where we are right now, you know, maybe you guys in chat will tease, you know, people in chat will tease you. But, I mean, he gets front page Reddit. He's going to get tweeted. He's going to get Facebook, YouTube video, reaction videos, all that stuff. So for him to come out now and make this video, basically trying to justify his recent lack of performance and his, you know, it's just going to open him up for more, you know, for more haters and more criticism. And, you know, like the one thing I'll point out that I could see people criticizing now is in the video he mentioned something about that he never has claimed that he's going to be this Hearthstone god, that he's going to be winning every tournament and he's going to be super, like the best player ever. But then he later digresses in the video that in regards to his Magic career, it's unheard of for people to have the elo that he has online. It's unheard of to have a lifetime win percentage of 71% or whatever he said. It's unheard of to be, you know, so basically he says that he's modest and he's never done this, but then he backtracks and talks about how great he is and how much he can do. And it's kind of like, so are you saying you can be great and you're not doing it? Or are you saying you're modest, you're hoping to do well like everybody is, but just because you're a good entertainer doesn't mean people should be putting this pressure on you and also be giving you such backlash if you don't perform? I'm lost in between his actions and his words at different points in the video. But I don't know, LJ, what do you have to think about both his reaction and also the way that some streamers and personalities within the Hearthstone community are viewed?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that I don't think I think Reynat was being a little bit of a, I don't want to say drama queen, but I'm not really sure what other word I could use.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, but basically, like, he doesn't have it as bad as a lot of other popular streamers have in other games, such as, like, League of Legends, other very popular games. I know Counter-Strike is very competitive as well. Halo used to be, but I guess it's not anymore, unfortunately. I like that game. But, yeah, but, like, those players in those games are expected to win. They're expected by their fans, by their sponsors, by everyone. They're expected to win. If they don't win, then they're getting kicked off teams, and they're losing their sponsorships. These are the things that Reynad was saying in the video that he was worried about. But in Hearthstone, people expect you to not win because the fact that it's a card game, automatically you're going to be losing way more than you should be. If you're like the best player, you're going to be losing way more in that game than you would be if you're the best player in League of Legends or I guess that's a bad example because that's a team game, but like Halo or something, which
is StarCraft or something, you know, something like StarCraft 2 and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, StarCraft is a great example. But so you're automatically so you have a leeway with fans already because they know that luck plays a huge factor in card games. Not only your draws, but things like RNG, Ragnaros, you know, Mad Bombers, Knife Jugglers. There's so much RNG in Hearthstone that it can affect who wins and who loses. It's not always just your draws, even though draws is probably the biggest RNG for sure that can determine the game. But yeah, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of excuses you can make for losing. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I think he's being a little short-sighted with that, just thinking that he is being targeted and it's going to be the end of the world. He's going to lose his sponsorships and all that. That's not going to happen. He's not going anywhere for a very long time. He would have to perform insanely bad for like the next year and a half for him to go anywhere. He's around to stay for sure. He has Hearthstone is a very secure job because in things like League of Legends, the best player, if he's like rank 1 in the ladder, for example, he's going to be getting a sponsorship. You know, there's a very good the players are much more noticed for their performance in other games besides Hearthstone. Hearthstone, you don't even have to finish. Most players in the well-played tournament aren't even finishing in the top rankings of Legend. And so they're not even doing amazing in the ladder. And that's to be expected. They're being brought to these tournaments because of who they are. And, you know, in my opinion, they should be. They should be brought there because ultimately it's the community that's making these tournaments and they need viewers. And so bringing an unknown name guy in the ladder is not going to rack in the views.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, do you think that do you think that that ends up being a healthy thing for Hearthstone, or do you think that that's bad? Just because people are great entertainers doesn't always mean that they're what's going to grow a game. They might grow the game on via Twitch or via YouTube and
Mhm.
streams, but in terms of creative deck builds, just putting in a different mind perspective on the game. If you just see the same big name guys that are going to play the same way and things like that, and then also to me it comes down to it. If people always watch Reynad and they know how he plays and they know how he plays, whether he comes in with an unknown deck or not, people still know what to expect from him. They kind of know if you put X amount of pressure on him, is he going to respond by bluffing that he's got lethal and he's going to go to the face, he goes to the face to feign that, or is he going to just make good trades? Is he going to build, does he build aggro decks? Does he build, with this certain secret in mind, etc.? Would you see, and actually that now that I'm thinking about it, if you add in more unknown people, would that even more so lessen the lack of success from other streamers as well? If what I'm trying to basically say is if you have a bunch of streamers that know each other, know how they all play, and everybody is kind of at like a certain level, if you bring in people that they don't know about, a lot of times underdogs and unknown people can beat the best people just on that
Absolutely.
aspect alone. So do you think that maybe Blizzard and whoever's putting on the tournaments is afraid of that? That they're afraid, well, whoa, 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 we have a great streamer base, and if we let them get dumpstered by unknown people, that's going to lower their credibility, and then before we know it, there's like a bigger gap. I don't
Um,
know though.
I'm not so sure if I believe that from the people who are putting on the tournaments. I
Mm,
think that they are just putting on who they can get the most viewers. I think if we want to see a tournament setting or an esports setting where the best people on the ladder are the ones playing in the tournaments, first of all, I don't know if that's even a good idea in a game like Hearthstone, to be honest, because I don't know if that's possible to judge the best player by the ladder. I'm not sure that's the way to do it.
it's true.
But if they wanted to do that, the community, the people that are making these well played tournaments, the small companies that are doing it are not going to be able to take that risk of putting on those streamers. It's going to have to be Blizzard. Blizzard is the one that has to be able to take that risk, and unfortunately, they have not been on top of the ball in the esports scene for any of their games. And the community basically makes their esports for them, unfortunately. So I think those companies could use help. They could use observation mode as soon as possible because it's pretty jank the setup that they have to have right now, where both players have to be able to stream for you to see the deckhands, and there's constant if it's live, there's constant issues with it, and so that part's very unfortunate on that side.
Yeah, and especially like you were just saying, that there's issues. I know that there was stuff Raynad was talking about one of the tournaments where the soundproof headsets weren't even soundproof, and then they were told to put in music and stuff. Like you hear stuff like that come out, and that lessens credibility. And then I know we were talking a little bit with RDU,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole high mom thing. And if you want
Yeah.
to talk about that, I know maybe I haven't gotten to look into much with RDU, but I
Yeah.
know you. I'm not saying you're a proponent of him, but I know you definitely don't
No.
hate the guy or anything.
No, I don't hate the guy, but I definitely don't root for him. And not because of the high mom thing, just because he's not somebody I just root for. I root for Trump most of the time, but
Yeah,
he can play more tournaments too. Trump, by the way,
yeah.
but no. But the whole thing with RDU is I think it's kind of almost the same boat that Raynad is in, but it's way more unfair for RDU because his reputation has been built on the BlizzCon tournaments where basically those that don't know, he was getting high mom messages from his friends and basically they were the people were associating the other player's cards with high mom, like it was a secret message meant that it was some card in their hand. I think it was Leroy Jenkins, and at one point RDU even got a message of exactly what was in his opponent's hand. um so I think RDU maybe could have responded differently to that, but I mean, geez, the guy is only 17 years old. He's a kid. He's not even an adult yet. And I mean, he's won so many tournaments in a row now. I mean, he has had the best 2 months of any player in any tournament. He's just winning nonstop. He's performing highly well, and still half the community hates him because of that event that happened. Um, And so it's kind of the same thing with Reynad. It's the perception that either they built or they got somehow. Yeah. And it's just they're unable to break it. And so they have to basically live with it. It's very hard to change people's first impression of you, unfortunately.
And I think that that's something that's going to apply even more so now also with Blizzard itself and the esports scene. They're going to have to do something eventually before you know it, Hearthstone's just going to be known as that esport, that one that was only like given half thought and didn't, amount to anything. And I know everything has to start somewhere. You can't expect them to first or second tournament be filling some arena and, couple 100,000 of people or something like what's going on with Dota and League and have these great prize pools. But, I mean, you can't be playing out of your mom's basement for too long before playing out of your mom's basement is all that you're going to get and that's all that you're expected to get.
Exactly. Yeah, and the fact that they didn't have servers for that BlizzCon tournament, that the fact that they were playing on their own accounts with their own cards, that is very sad to me. They couldn't create a server for their own Blizzard tournament. DreamHack, I think it was, but they couldn't create their own servers with all the cards available to players, and no friends list, obviously. That's just unbelievable to me. So that's very disappointing on Blizzard's side.
Yeah, but I think that's all that we have for today. We don't want to talk about too much. Want to stick to a script. But thank you guys for being here, tuning in and watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave any comments down below. Things that we can improve on, things that you want to hear us talk about. Also, we'll be happy to answer any questions throughout, as you post them, or also in our next episode. Also, if any tournaments happen or any breaking news happens, we'll be happy to cover that as well. But make sure that you're following Lawrencejame Hearthstone the other way. That way, follow this guy down there at YouTube at Lawrencejame Hearthstone, or HS. And also make sure you follow me on YouTube and Twitter as well. Hopefully we'll get LJ to make a Twitter eventually. But besides that, thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
See you guys. Thanks.
See ya.